You're listening to Black Parents Aging, where we help you navigate caring for aging loved ones. Every Wednesday, we'll discuss how to help your parents successfully navigate this new season of life. We are going to talk about legal, health, technology, and finances. Here's your host attorneys, Olivia Smith and Nicola Robinson.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Black Parents Aging. We are so excited today. We have our very first guest, y'all. I'm just floored. I am so grateful to Dr. Fayron Epps, who is joining us today. We got so much to cover for y'all. But before we get started, let me just give you a little background about Dr. Epps, and then I'm going to really turn the show over to her because she's the expert and she's got so much she wants to share with you. So Dr. Fayron Epps is a nurse with 20 years of experience and is currently serving as an assistant professor at Emory University, my alma mater, Nell Hutchinson's Woodruff School of Nursing. Dr. Epps is an active member with numerous professional organizations. She currently serves on the board of directors for the Southern Gerontology Society, the Alzheimer's Association Georgia chapter, and Meals on Wheels Atlanta. Her goal as a nurse scholar is to promote quality of life for families affected by dementia through research, education, and service. Her program of research involves evidence-based practices for promoting quality of life for African Americans with dementia and their family and caregivers. She is particularly interested in exploring ways religious activities, spiritual connectedness can promote meaningful engagement among persons with dementia. Dr. Epps is currently working on a project with faith-based communities to develop dementia-friendly faith villages to support African American families living with dementia. Dr. Epps also leads a collaborative called Faith Village Connections and works with faith communities and other organizations to spread dementia awareness. Thank you so much, Dr. Epps, for joining us today. Y'all, she is my go-to, my girl. I love her dearly. We have gotten to know each other in the last 2 years, and the work that she and her team does has just been amazing. She is my person for everything Alzheimer's and dementia. So today, Dr. Epps is going to talk to us about what even is the difference between those, because some people be thinking it's the same one thing. I did. And then she helped me break it down. So Dr. Epps, welcome. I want you to get us started with kind of just telling us briefly how you got into all of this.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's giving me this opportunity to talk to everyone. And again, another way to spread dementia awareness. And so the reason I got into this way back was after I finished my doctoral studies. I was presented like, you need to focus on something, because I was just looking at family caregivers overall. And I said, I need to focus on something. So I just started going into the literature and digging, and I ran across some statistics as it relates to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And first, I didn't understand it because I was just like, oh, what is this? Because they don't talk too much about this in school. They just say, older adults or the elderly is confused, but they really don't dig too much, go too much into it. So once I started going into it and looking at the difference, and, I was raised that when I hear the word Alzheimer's disease, that's for white folks. Black folks don't get that, and that's just how I was raised. And then when I seen the statistics that actually Black Americans are twice more likely to have it than our white counterparts, I was like, wait, that's not adding up. And I went right back to my family, my mom, and I was like, Mom, do you know about it? She's like, no. They don't know what they're talking about. And it was just always that. And I went to my aunt and I just started asking people, and they was just clueless. And I was like, well, this is it, because I need to educate myself, and in return, educate my family and then my community, because I've seen how it's hidden. And this is one of the diseases that there is no cure. No cure, no remission. The medicine it does not cure it. It does not slow down the progression. It only manages the symptoms. So this is one of the top 10 diseases for mortality that does not have a cure.
Wow.
And if this is drastically, disproportionately impacting my community, why not get out there and tell people about it? Because we're not talking about it. We're calling it, oh, they just crazy. They contrary. Because I said that about my aunt, and when I started reading this, I was like, the first person I thought about was my great aunt. I was like, oh, this is stuff that she is going through. And when I told my aunt, and they stay in a rural area of Louisiana, they were like, nah, she's been contrary like that. That's just how she's been all her life. And you know what I said? You're right. Because she's been crazy all her life. because you start thinking about it, like, yeah, we've been in church and she'll take that slipper off and whip us and yell back at the preacher or tell people off and don't even care, so that's why I was like, okay, yeah, she's been crazy and everybody always been scared to go to her house, always. But come to find out, she died in her house. And her son found her because she would lock it up and no one would go visit because we always been scared to go to her house. And then come to find out, she died in her house. I don't know the exact time, how long she had been in there. And I didn't find out until after the funeral when I asked her daughter, I always thought your mom had dementia. And she said, oh, she did.
Oh, wow.
I said, well, why you didn't tell nobody? Because they lived in 2 different states. And if she would have told somebody, then maybe my aunt would have been more purposeful and getting over there and getting in the inside and checking on her. Other people would have been more intentional. And so I was just like, why? And that really hit because I was just like, now knowing what I know, there's so many things that we could have put in place. And again, not to cure it, but to make, as the disease was progressing, and make things better, have a better quality of life, right?
Right.
And now people would know, okay, don't be scared of her. And they would go that extra mile to be there for her, So, okay, that was a long answer.
That's
probably
okay. You already got me tearing up. You already got me tearing up because when I met you and just for the first time, I started hearing these statistics and hearing how it was impacting the African-American community. And I'm looking around like, why is nobody talking about this? Why are we not hearing these statistics? We hear about heart disease. We hear about diabetes all the time. Like everybody knows those impact African-American communities at much higher rates. But then when I heard you guys, and I'm like, what in the world? So share with the people, just for people who may not even know, what is Alzheimer's? What is dementia? And what do those statistics look like? What is the impact it's having on our community?
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. And because that is one of the most confusing things. And when we talk, I need to do better because I still use Alzheimer's and dementia interchangeably because people are familiar with the word Alzheimer's disease, but it's actually dementia. It's the big umbrella term, and that's where Alzheimer's disease fall from. It is a form of dementia. And so dementia is this big umbrella term that is signs and symptoms that have impact memory, personality, and decision-making. Those are the main 3 things that dementia touches. So again, your memory, personality, and decision-making. And so everybody gets stuck on that memory part. But again, personality changes and impaired reasoning as it relates to decision-making. And there's over 70 types of dementia. And Alzheimer's disease is just the number 1 type. And that's why you always hear that. And that's why we have these different types. And it's the pathophysiology behind each type. So, Alzheimer's disease is plaques and tangles that they see, when they do any tests, and certain proteins that they see if they do a lumbar puncture. But you see more Alzheimer's disease in whites. Okay. Again, so another reason why we just, a lot of people, okay, Alzheimer's disease, white, boom, boom, boom. But the second most common is vascular dementia. Okay. And vascular dementia is where you see it in the communities of color. And And that's the part that we really stress. So while people are educating about heart disease and stroke and all of that stuff, they just need to tag on vascular dementia.
Okay.
Because that's how you end up getting vascular dementia, when you don't take care of all of those heart issues that you have. So if you have high blood pressure and you're not taking your medicine over the years, that stuff is impacting our brain. They're not taking their fluid pill, if they're not managing their diabetes. We only think about certain organs. We think about, oh, your kidney's going to be infected. Oh, your eyes are going to get bad. You're going to get some problems with your retina. You might have the amputation in your lower legs because you're going to get no oxygen down there, right? Those are the things that we kind of think about when we're, looking at our parents and trying to help them manage through their chronic illnesses. But no one thinks about the neck up.
Right.
What happens if blood is not flowing to my feet? Guess where else it's not flowing? It's not flowing to my brain either. And the thing is, changes that happen in your brain before someone can see it, it's happening 20 years before.
Wow.
So I'm in my 40s now, and I do have high blood pressure. And I was so scared when I was diagnosed with it, because I know if I don't manage it, what can happen. So just imagine, if I'm not managing my diet and taking my medicines, I'm having changes right now in my brain that will happen and occur and start making itself visible 20 years down the line. So then I would be in my early 60s showing signs and symptoms of dementia. And that's why a lot of people now are seeing early onset dementia, which is anybody that's get diagnosed before the age of 65.
Okay. I never understood what that term meant. So thank you for clearing that up.
So early on, because you have early dementia, that's the different stages. But then early onset is if you're younger than 65 and you get dementia. And I have met some people in their 50s that are in the prime of their life, right?
Right.
Prime of their life, doing their thing at work, that has been diagnosed with a form of dementia. So, Alzheimer's disease, most common, and vascular dementia. Then there's FTLD, which is frontotemporal lobe dementia. And again, that affects, you'll get a lot of personality changes. And so it's the path though behind the disease. Then you also have Lewy body dementia, which is very common. So there's so many types. And I just met someone this week with another type. And I was just like, wow, but the point is, we just need to know about this, know about things that we can do to try to prevent it. And if it happens, know, okay, what do we need to put in place to make everybody's lives better? So to make that person, their partner, their spouse, their children lives better as they go through this journey.
So Dr. Epps, let me ask you, because you said it affects memory and personality changes, but I feel like that's also just a part of aging. So we always think of people as they get older, they're going to forget their keys, or they're going to forget where they put, their wallet and stuff like that. So how do you, as a child, see your mom starting to maybe forget some stuff? How do you know whether that's just natural aging? And you also hear about older people just getting a little bit more ornery or getting a little more testy. So you see that personality change. Like my husband tells people all the time, he can't wait to be 75 because he's about to let the lid off. He's like, I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to do what I want to do. So how do you know it's not just that part of aging that we kind of just expect versus might be signs of something else and that we might need to go see and seek help for our parents?
Yeah. So the biggest thing we say is if there's deficits that impact your daily living. So as it relates to the memory part, a lot of us forget, right? I forget now, but forgetfulness can be brought on by so much. So this is a really good question because it can be brought on by depression. It can be brought on by stress. So there's a lot of things, but the thing is, I remember where I put those keys. I might not remember within 5 minutes, but you give me about 30 minutes, an hour to track my steps, and I will be able to locate my keys. For someone we need to be concerned about they will never locate those keys.
Okay.
It'll be 24, 48 hours, and they're still fussing that someone stole their keys because they don't want them to go nowhere. So then you'll start seeing that. And so that you see how that personality first, they forgot it, and then they went into being accusing someone.
Gotcha.
So you just have to be mindful. It might happen once. And then if you start seeing it happen more and more, your mom or your father forget the recipe. So like mom, especially during the holidays, and I know holidays just passed, but they make the best sweet potato pie, but all of a sudden you see them missing an ingredient. It's things like that, stuff that they already always knew and did not have to think about it. And now they're missing those steps.
Okay.
And they don't understand. Like when you do question about it, you'll see then the person, they become defensive.
Okay.
So those are things that really, and then also one of the key things, and I just heard it this week, because I'm on a group called Black Dementia Minds, where it's a couple of folks that have been diagnosed with dementia, and they just talking about their journey. And this young man, younger than 60, shared that he was coming home from visiting his family out of state and had a great weekend. And then he was driving and looked up and didn't know where he was.
Oh, wow.
Totally forgot where he was. He read the street and he called his wife, and, they had to walk through it. But he said that was his own sign. Like, what in the world? I grew up here and I forgot where I am. And so a lot of people will get lost. If your parent, say they're going to the grocery store and you start noticing it's taking them longer and longer. They go to church, they're supposed to go to church, they never make it. Like when we were really out and about, we need to really be mindful of that because, there's a lot of incidences where these family members or your parents would get lost. So we really need to pay attention because they just forget where they are and we can't predict when that's going to happen. And so when they say that, when they call you and say, oh, girl, I was driving and I had just forgot where I was, but it came back to me. Let's not take it lightly and let's not laugh about it neither. That's something you should take a little journal and track it and see how often this happens. And these are the things that you bring to the doctor. And as it relates to personality changes, everybody has a filter, like those that don't have a diagnosis of dementia. So when your husband gets 70, 80, he can say what he wants, but he still know. He still know not to come to you and curse you out. Right?
Corey, are you listening? Do you hear this?
Even though we may say what we want, but we know right from wrong.
Right.
And we know who to say it to and who not to say it to. A person with dementia, there is no filter whatsoever. And you'll start seeing that person will be in church and start cursing out loud. So no matter how honorary someone is, y'all know, if there's someone is in there, have all their mental capacity, they will not do that. And those are the things that we don't laugh about and we need to pay more attention to. And the decision making is really key. And that falls in, it's like planning and decision making, not paying the bills. So I've had a family tell me they put all they was cleaning up at their mom's house and they lift up they put the tablecloths. I don't have tablecloths, but my aunt has it over her formal dining table and stuff. And they lift it up and there was all the bills that her mother had just slipped under there and was not even paying the bills. And so we really need to be mindful of that because we always see, that's how we see our parents, they pay everything. Yeah, we get it, they own point, and we never check behind them. And I think that is just something that we should do even, just periodically, just to make sure that their bills are being paid. They're going to be less, their guard is not going to be up when it comes to scams. So again, that's that decision making. Scammers, there must be a list. They know who to call or something, Nicola. You might have to tell us how that works. I don't know. But, if you don't have your proper, the decision-making skills is on point, someone can call you And they can say, go get your book. We really need this. You'll fall for your parents will start falling for the craziest stories. And you get mad because I asked you for some money. You wouldn't give it to me. But these people can call you from these magazines or whatever. They just get really creative now. Now, since everybody's online, it's big with the virus and the computer, stuff like that. Because my mom got involved in that. And I got so upset. She called me afterwards and she said, I think I might have did something wrong.
Oh, no.
And I was like, Mama, you know better. I talk about this all the time and you got kids. If something's wrong with your computer, you call us. But she wanted me to give her control and I just went ahead and did it. And so, you know what? I marked that down on my list and I told her I was marking it on my list. Look, Mom, hold up. These are the things I talk about. What else is going on? What other things? And I started just, having some conversation with her. But we need to be mindful of that. See, those things are really key to and stuff that we might just push off.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my team members, she talks about this often, how the scammers are so smart, y'all. They're not going to ask your parents for $100, $200, $2,000. They might ask them just for $5, $10. But it's going to be the frequency.
Yes.
That they're receiving that. So even when you're checking those bank statements and you see 5 or 10, you really don't matter, be like, okay, yeah, $5. What? I waste $5 every day or something like that. But if you don't pay attention the first time, it's going to keep showing up. And next thing you know, over 2 years, those $5 add up. Absolutely. So it can be just simple things like that I think we just need to be mindful of, especially when we're looking at our parents, making sure they're still doing what they have to do. And then not just parents, your great aunts, uncles, because a lot of us, I have an aunt, she didn't have any kids. So she's like my mom, right? Because I also got to look out for her as well. And these are the things that, I talk to them about and I really pay attention. And when they call me, I am listening to everything they say and trying to pick up on, okay, is this making sense? Like, Mama, you making some, I'm going to tell her, y'all, don't be mad. I'm like, Mom, you making some stupid decisions right now. And that's something you pay attention because my mom is, she's always been on point, but now these decisions, just not making sense. Like they're not adding up. And so I need to be more mindful and start, looking at things and like, Mom, okay.
So Dr. Epps, what if you, as a child of a parent who's starting to forget the keys and never can find them, what are some things that you can do to even bridge start the conversation? Because we talk about that a lot. A lot of the kids that we get, they come in and they're like, I can't talk to my mama about this stuff. I don't know where her bank account is, so I can't even talk about looking at the statements because there's this level of trust and this thing about the parents being the ones in charge. So we, the kids, like, how do you, as the kid, now even go to mama and say, hey, you keep forgetting your keys. You keep losing your keys. You're not even forgetting where they are. You just can't find them. How do you start that conversation with them when you see the signs are there? If you start seeing some of the stuff we're talking about, where do you go from there?
That is tough. And I don't know if there's one right answer. I think each family will be different, but I can share with you what I've done with some families that have reached out to me. I've come over. Okay. Because sometimes basically it's having an outside person.
Okay.
To talk about it to have that initial conversation because it is so personal. And the first thing is going to be you trying to take my money. Mm-hmm. Because you're always thinking, kids are bringing up something because they have an alternative motive, right? Mm-hmm. And they want this, they want that. And so I have actually traveled to people's homes and just had conversations with them, just general conversations. And I bring things up, I had particularly one wife call me and she said, I went to my pastor. He told me to call you. And I know my husband has this, but I can't talk to him about it. I don't know. And I say, can I just come over? Can I come over and just talk to you real loud and he's going to hear me? You got to just have those tricks, and he's going to come and be nosy and come sit down at the table. And that's just what happened. He wanted to know who this young lady was in the house. And he came and sat down at the table. And I just had this general conversation with her about what I do and why I do it. And for her, she knows anybody like this. And then I turned to him and I said, if you know anybody like this, let me know, because there's things we can do to help. And you know what? When she got up and left out the room, you know what he said? I have some of those signs and symptoms. I said, you do? Then we started talking. And then I said, you know what? Can we call your wife back in? So I didn't do it in a threatening manner. He still didn't want the public to know. But just at that moment, him acknowledging it made his wife feel so much better. Gotcha. Now they was on this journey together. And they weren't ready to tell the kids yet, but they were on the same page, together. And so those are the things as I speak with the pastors a lot, because sometimes, again, that outside person, it might have to be the pastor just to have that conversation. And then another thing I tell people, I do a lot of education. We used to do it face-to-face. We do it virtual, but there's a lot of education out there. And then invite your parents to come to this education session with you. Okay. And you don't have to say it's for you. Hey, just come. Let's go learn about this, because I heard it's really attacking our community.
I like that. And then, so that they don't feel that there's any pointing the finger or blaming or saying that this is for you, Mom. I love that.
And when they sit in the education, Nicola, you will see, because we talk about the signs and symptoms, or any education session is going to address the signs and symptoms. And anybody there, even when I'm there, I start okay, do I do that? Do I do that? Right? Do I do that? And so anybody's going to start thinking about that. And you just, especially when we used to have our face-to-face education, it was just so powerful afterwards, because there were people in the audience that these things were happening to. And some of them stood up afterwards and gave testimonies. Some come to us afterwards in private. So it's just life-changing, but you have to think outside the box and be creative. Okay. And, ultimately, your parents and their personality. Some parents just talk about everything. It's all good. But again, some no, you're not going to come and threaten my authority or something like that. And you just have to be creative. And if you notice any of these changes, start going to the doctor with your parents.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay, 2 things before we even transition to that. One, since we're now virtual, how do people find educational stuff? How do they find you? I know you can't come to everybody's house, although they would love you, but how do they get a webinar or something that they can say, hey, Mom and Dad, watch this with me and get the education? Yeah. You can't do it.
So right now we have on Facebook, we have our Facebook page, Faith Village Connections. We do all our webinars through there now. They're still there. They're recorded. And then we also have it on YouTube, Faith Village Connections YouTube channel, where we post our webinars there. And so they'll have that. They can message me through Facebook as well, because, we have a team and I can talk to them, because sometimes our webinars might not address their particular situation and they just have a question and they want to talk, and we're open to talking. And I'll be able to maybe refer them to a colleague that if they're in Georgia, outside of Georgia. Our network is large. So feel free, to go to those platforms. And also, and I know you'll share this later, but, my email is ff@emory.edu. And so I think that's pretty easy. You can just shoot me an email. Hey, I heard you on this and that. And I'll get back with you if you want more information. And we also have a newsletter that we highlight all our education events. And again, just by you reaching out to us some type of way, we can add you on that list. And the events that we choose are the ones we do, and then the ones that I know would be beneficial to my community. Yeah. Those are the events that we kind of really choose, and we share with our audience. And if it's okay with you, Nicola, I'll put my number out here right quick.
Absolutely. And guys, if you're not catching it now, it'll be in the show notes. So you'll be able to get all of her contact, and I'll put the links to Faith Village Connection, the Facebook group. I'll put her email and all that stuff on there as well. So if you want to share it now, go ahead and then make sure you check out the show notes, guys, and you can get it there.
I have a Faith Village Research Lab, and our number is 678-723-8188. And so that's our general number. And if we do not answer immediately, because it comes to all of our phones, if you leave a message, or you can even text it, and we'll get right back to you. So that is a number that you also can text and say, hey, I heard about you on the podcast and I just want to chat. And then I'll be able to return your message.
Okay.
The second.
No, and then we can do that transition, because I think that is something that a lot of us are struggling with, going to the doctor with our parents, like knowing how to interject ourselves in that. Parents been going to the doctors for years by themselves. They don't need us. And now all of a sudden we see these signs and we start wanting to say, well, mama, let me go to the next doctor's appointment with you. I was on a recent podcast and a guy was saying on the show, he was like, if I ask my mom how she doing, she say, fine. I see her, and they live in different states. He was like, I see her on the screen. She says she fine. I'm going to go with that. He's like, I don't know how to get more than fine from my mom. And then he doesn't know how to then move into, should I be going to these doctor's appointments? So if you can talk about that piece, if you see these signs and now you need to start going to the doctor with your parents or even having conversations with their healthcare providers, how do you go about that?
That's very, very tricky. And so I think if we start seeing the signs and say, hey, mom or pops, when next time you go to the doctor, I just want to come with you. Sometimes we got to tell a little fib, I just want to check out to see what the doctor credentials are. You just kind of got to think out the box, so because first thing that, why you need to come to the doctor with me, so you just,
fine. They're going to say, I don't know why you need to come because I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine, and so, and you can just say, hey, I want to check out the credentials, especially right now with COVID-19. A lot of appointments are telehealth. Mm-hmm. So that is really good, number one, right? So you can be home when he or she has the doctor's appointments. And for those that are saying they need to go in, I think it's a great time for us to say, well, I want to make sure I'm there to make sure that they have all the precautions in place, because each doctor's office does things different.
Right.
And we kind of got to say it like that. But also interacting with the healthcare provider is going to be also tricky, because we have some, especially they're not a geriatrician. Mm-hmm. They're not really well versed in dementia and all the different types. They might not let you come in. Because again, a lot of doctor's offices are not saying only one person come in, right? So you're going to have a note to hand to the person who's at the door that says, I have concerns about her memory. I need to come. Like you're going to have to start doing things like that. It's okay after she scheduled an appointment for you to call back to the doctor's office and let them know this is one of my concerns.
Okay, that's good, Dr. Epps.
Okay. And then what I did for my mom, I think a couple of years ago, I said, Mom, call your doctor's office and make sure you have me on that list for them to share information with. So, when as you're a new patient, you put in there who you want to get your information.
Yeah, the HIPAA authorization.
Yeah. And so you need to go ahead and ask them to make sure you're listed there. Because some parents they're going to put they'll put the spouse, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to put Joe, and they really don't pay attention to that. They kind of scribble it. But it's really important that we're on that. Okay. And so now I was able to call my mom's cardiologist, because I wasn't able to be at the appointment, and to get reports and to get results. And so that's another way for you to find out actually what's going on. So making sure that you're on that list. Again, it's going to be tricky because some offices are just really strict, but you have to let them know, I have concern about his or her memory.
And so, Dr. Epps, are we talking about just their primary health care provider? Because you said a geriatrician. I don't even know who that is. So do you call up a geriatrician? Tell the people what that is.
Well, geriatrician is a healthcare provider or a medical physician that has specialized training in older adults.
Okay.
They really we have all of these specialists. And so a geriatrician is a specialist for older adults. So they're more versed on dementia and other chronic illnesses or diseases that older adults will get.
Do you say, okay, mom, I know you got your primary care doctor and you love Dr. Owens. You've been going to him for 30 years, but I think you need to see a geriatrician. Like, how do you introduce this other person?
Well, first look at that primary care provider. You have to look them up because they have different training.
Okay.
So they could be the primary care provider and they also can have a specialty in gerontology or be a geriatrician. And then they'll be good, right? So we're not going to assume that they're not. But when you look up the doctor and all they do have is just family, well, then you can ask them to refer you to a geriatrician, or you can just go in the network, whatever the insurance is, and look up and see who's a geriatrician. And most of the time, it'll be next to someone that's a family physician as well. But again, it's just additional training that they have to do. And I'm not saying everyone needs a geriatrician. I just promote that, especially if someone has dementia, because they will have more time and they would know more about it. And they will not just say, oh, I think you have a little dementia. Go get your stuff in order. Or they'll give you responses like that. Recently someone told me that the doctor told her mom she had a little dementia.
Dementia?
Yeah. And just like little diabetes, like there's no such thing as a little, either you're showing signs and symptoms or you're not. And there's different stages: mild cognitive impairment, early stage, middle stage, late stage, but a geriatrician would know those details. So even if you're in a family care provider and they give your mom or father or your relative a diagnosis of any form of dementia, you need to ask them for a referral.
Okay.
To go to a neurologist, to go also follow up with a geriatrician, because they will have more resources for you. Because a lot of providers that are not trained in this, all they're going to do is tell you to go home and get your stuff in order. And that's not the case, because someone with dementia, they can live with this disease from 3 to 20 years. It's different for each person, right? So just because you get this diagnosis doesn't mean tomorrow all is gone. And once you put things in place, it's really important because it can help you have that better quality of life during this. And early detection, since we're in here, can we go into early detection?
Yes, please. I was going to ask.
Yeah, so because it's really key, because the problem is Blacks have a poor prognosis with this because they wait until the end. So they don't pick up to these signs and symptoms until way in the end when they go visit their mom and she's only 90 pounds.
Because you said this started 20 years prior. So by the time we're seeing these signs,
it's been going on.
It's been going on a minute.
Yes. But we still wait to get the diagnosis. So we do a lot of early detection, having memory screenings. If anyone's 65 and above on Medicare and they go in for their wellness visits, their doctor should automatically do a memory screening. And if they don't, they need to ask for it, because these doctors get paid extra just to do this memory screening. And that will give them their baseline. And each year when they go back for their wellness visit, the physician and the provider is supposed to look at that to see if that's a decline. When we do our education events in person, we do memory screenings because we want people to start being aware of what their baseline scores are. Because early detection is really key. And that's when they can come to you, Nicola. Like, if you know this early on, you can put things in place if you don't have it in place. And we call that a lot with life planning, because you came to we did a webinar on that.
Right. Talk to the fear that we have as the kids of parents who might be showing signs. How can we ease our own fear? Because we're not going to bring it up to our parents, because we want to keep our head in the sand too. We just want to say she's forgetful. We don't want to deal with what's going to come on the other side of that diagnosis. So can you talk a little bit about that to put the rest of us who listening to this at ease on what life looks like after that diagnosis?
Yeah, I don't think I do a good job because he's still I don't know. I'm going to tell you, my biggest thing is education. If we educate ourselves about, okay, what this is, what happens next, like before you even come to your parents or whoever you're concerned about, if we educate ourselves and if we know, the more educated we are, the more equipped we are, the more competent we become, right? And so now we can tackle things. So it's just like when we go to school and we go to college and stuff, we have that fear, as a nurse, I had that fear, but after I went through training, I'm ready.
Right.
And that's how I look at this. If we just get that education by this podcast is great and other things that you can read and look up on, then you're more equipped. And now you know what you need to do to put things in place so it won't be a burden. Because that'd be one of the biggest things. Oh, if this happened, if our parents get sick, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to stop my job. I'm gonna have to move. There's so many things that we think about. But if you start educating yourself beforehand and you know what to put in place. So it may not be you have to stop your job. If they have certain insurances in place and things like that you could pay someone, it may not be you have to move. There's certain things. So, a lot of people always just think, but there's a lot of things that are in place to help older adults to continue to age successfully in the community. And we just have to educate ourselves on that and just don't be fearful, because as we continue to live in fear, things are not getting better. It's only getting worse. And one day we're going to have to face it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time we're facing it at the end when things are just all screwed up and messed up. And so now guess what? You do have to quit your job. Now you do have to move.
Right.
So, I have another friend, they're in my age category. So this is real. Our parents are getting older right now. And he had to just make the decision to go to Mississippi and just pick up his mom and say, come visit me. And she never returned home.
Wow.
And he just, because he needs to continue to work and stuff, but he know before this worsens, I need to bring her to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can put some stuff in place so we both can continue going on. So he did it before it had got to the point where it just would have been too major to make a move.
Gotcha.
And those are the things that we have to just think about and just be proactive.
Let me also ask you, go back to the memory screening.
Yes.
Because I think people are scared of stuff like that. So is it scary? Are they picking and probing? Like, tell us what it is.
No. And so there's very different types of memory screenings. One I do is called the brief mini cognitive test. It takes all of 3 minutes and It's not scary. It's just me, you in a private room. And we're just going over a couple things. It's really 3 items that we do. Something so simple. But that's so simple can tell me so much about you. And so it's no probing, it's no needles involved. It's just a paper and a pen and some conversation. They even have an online memory screening test, and I didn't do too good on this one. But it's like you recognizing pictures. It's like you looking at pictures, and I was like, oh no. But they even have those if anybody wants to go try to do that one. They have the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, I believe. Yeah, they have one that you can do online.
Okay.
But the ones you do at the doctor office is just and you don't even know you're doing it.
Okay.
Because it's conversational. Some doctors have it down pat, or nurse practitioners have it down pat, where it's conversational, but again, it's nothing to be afraid of. And a lot of people ask me, want a memory screening? No, I'm here for my mom. And, I'm like, what? You want to know your baseline too. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to wait until 65 to get your memory screen. If you're at a fair or something that they're offering, go ahead and get it. I did my baseline and I didn't get a perfect score, but at least I know my baseline. Mm-hmm. This is how I function. And so if it declines, okay, I know we have a problem. And so I think that's really key. If somebody's offering to get in, just not say you're here for your mom. It's just for you to know your baseline. And there's many people that were 45 and under, y'all, when we was doing our screenings, that had an abnormal score. And they had no clue. Right. And it could have just been a bad day for them, but it was something for me to tell them that they need to follow up on. So as we're learning for our parents, we're also learning for ourselves.
Absolutely. So I heard you say that if you are 65 and older, Medicare will cover it. Now, what if you are younger and have private insurance? Is it something that private insurance will cover as well?
So you'll have to ask, because it's automatically comes with that. And so you'll have to ask the your whoever your managed care company is, or your doctor.
Okay.
About that. But I really suggest that, if you have the opportunity to get your memory screened, please do get it screened, especially if you have a long history of cardiovascular disease.
Okay.
Because again, Black folks tend to get the vascular dementia, and it can progress and mix with all other types of dementia, but that's usually where we would get that from. The type of dementia we usually would get.
Dr. Epps, you have given us so much today. I am so, so grateful. I know we're going to have you back on the show.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about the church. We didn't talk about the taboo behind it and stuff like that. But yes, I would love to come back.
So we're going to talk about that part. So we're going to do our part 2. Let's already commit to it, because that I find fascinating as well. I don't know, most of the audience probably don't know this about me, but before I became a lawyer, I was very fascinated. I have a degree in religion, actually. My undergrad was in religion, because I look at religion as such a cornerstone of our community, and how many things started out of religious movements. You talk about the civil rights movement. You look throughout history, the church has been just really foundational. So I really, really want to have you back so we can talk about that portion of your work too, because I think people need to understand, like, even after a diagnosis of dementia, like, life still happens. People still want those relationships. They still want to be in the community. So we are going to talk about it. I promise y'all.
Okay. I'm hold you to that, Nicola.
Yes. Listen, audience, she will be back. Don't worry. There's going to be a part 2. So I'm going to end this episode right now. If you have not, go ahead, subscribe, leave us a review. We would love it. Check us out on our Facebook group where we keep the conversation going. Join us on Facebook Live on Fridays, where we do kind of an after the episode, so we can get some more information and some tips and takeaways from the show. That's all for this episode. Take care, guys.
Thanks for joining us this week on Black Parents Aging. Check out our Facebook group at Black Parents Aging, where we go live to answer your questions. For more info on today's topic, check out the show notes on our website, srlawgrp.com. If you know someone who could benefit from today's episode, please share a link to the show. Subscribe to the show to catch new episodes and leave a review. Until next week.